the only winning move is not to play. All this and more coming up on This Week in Retro.
High-resolution color graphics.
This land of high technology.
The revolution in technology that made the information age possible.
Those kids are not afraid of computers.
Turning DOS into a console. It's DOSBox pure.
Right through Falken's Maze, the 1983 tech thriller WarGames Decoded.
Back of the bus, we have a look at a retro museum that comes to you.
And floppy archiving news, along with the Game of Life, all coming up on this week's episode for the week of the 18th of October, 2025.
Up-to-date news for out-of-date tech.
Hello, everyone. Hello, twirlers. Hello, Jason.
Hello.
Hello, Chris.
Hello, Dave. How are you?
Great. Fantastic to be here. Another episode. The week's just rushed past. Have you had a good time at POG? Has that been yet, Chris? Is that coming up?
As people are watching or listening to us right now, they're clearly not at POG because that will be happening at around the same time as this episode drops. So yes, that'll be good fun. I'm going to be taking something with me. Actually, I haven't even told you guys about this. But in the box behind me, I have here, and obviously I'll describe for the viewers what it is. I have something that's come all the way from Canada. I'm taking it to an Amiga meet and to several other places around Perth, even though it's a Spectrum. This is...
Oh.
Yes, Dave knows what this is. So I'm holding up what looks like a Spectrum 48K with the rubber keys. And
is it not, then?
The board inside it was originally in a Spectrum Plus, because this is the roaming Spectrum that's currently going around the globe. It's been signed by lots of YouTubers inside and out. And I know inside the case, there's even signatures like Mike Daly and stuff like that, because it's already been to the cave. The RMC cave. And the idea of this is it's basically going through lots of hands around the globe, getting passed around. It was originally owned by a guy called Henry, who then passed it on to Lee of More Fun Making It. And the idea is it will go around the globe, and then when it makes its way back to the UK and has any work that needs doing to it, finishes off, probably repaired from all the trips it's been on, it will be auctioned off for the befriending scheme. So it's a charity initiative. Lots of things slowly get added to the bundle of stuff in the box. I think the package has now been separated, so some stuff has gone straight from Canada back to the UK to sort of reduce global shipping. And then there's a limited amount in the box that's behind me here. So, yep, it actually arrived today. So I didn't know if I was going to be able to share it with you. But there it is. The roaming Spectrum made its way onto This Week in Retro, which is fantastic.
Very cool.
That's brilliant news. Hello, Lee.
With that, let's get on with the rest of the show.
I started to wonder if I'm wrong about something. And I've been making excuses for it and trying to explain why I'm not wrong. And I'm starting to think maybe I'm kidding myself on that. Really, I am wrong about it, and I should admit it. And it's DOS, and it's how easy or difficult it is to use DOS for gaming. In my memory, it wasn't hard. Now, it wasn't as simple as just shoving a disk into the drive and switching it on like my Atari ST. But then again, my Atari ST didn't load games nearly instantly from hard disk, didn't save the games to hard disk, etc. So I felt it was a bit balanced. Most games, though, that struggled with memory would make a boot disk for you. And that was the big thing with DOS gaming, trying to get enough conventional memory. So there was a bit of a struggle with autoexec.bat and config.sys. And in my head, it's not that big a deal. But while I think I might be right in saying that I didn't feel it was hard, didn't find it hard, I think that's because I didn't have a choice and I was put into it in the 90s and just had to cope with it. And it also got me thinking about an episode from the sitcom Father Ted where the housekeeper, Mrs. Doyle, is given an automatic tea-making machine and she hates it because, as she eventually puts it, maybe I like the misery. So maybe I like the command line and having to get it right. But I do have to accept that not everyone does. And if I'm going to be fair to anyone who didn't deal with DOS in the period before DOS 4GW, so DOS 4GW was a way to break the 640k barrier that over a short period of time, all of a sudden every game used, and then once you had DOS 4GW, you didn't have all these problems. So anyone who didn't have to deal with DOS before that kind of 1994, 1995 period when it appeared, probably doesn't know how to do autoexec and config.sys and doesn't want to learn how to fiddle with it. I mean, why would you want to learn that now? And that's where today's submission comes in. I expect everyone has heard of DOSBox. DOSBox is an emulator for DOS, and it's been around for, in fact, over 20 years. And for at least 20 years of that period, it's been good and usable, and the first thing that people, I think, go to for DOS emulation. But it doesn't solve all the problems you might get with DOS. And there are other options, of course. But this is where DOSBox Pure comes in. This is a fork of DOSBox. It's almost 5 years old now. It's an attempt to turn DOS games into a console ROM kind of idea. And DOSBox at the moment can be a console emulator that fits within RetroArch in Android. So the idea is you can use it to launch a game like, let's say, Jazz Jackrabbit, which is a console-style game. You can launch that on DOS on an emulator and not have to know anything about the command line. And the Mrs. Doyle in me is saying, no, I don't want this automatic tea maker, but I have to put that gatekeeping aside. This is going to open doors to people playing some of the best games ever made for people who don't do any DOS diddling. Games like Syndicate, Warcraft, Master of Orion, Star Wars X-Wing, XCOM UFO Defense, Betrayal at Krondor, Ultima 7, Ultima Underworld, Descent, Master of Magic, One Must Fall, and I could go on. There are loads and loads of good DOS games. And I want to thank Good Punk 2 for linking a video, a 5-minute showpiece of the key features it brings. So obviously the main selling point is you put this on and it's like your Super Nintendo Mega Drive Sony emulator thing, and you just chuck a ROM at it and it loads it. It also has some awareness of what the games are. So if it can sense what the game is, it'll make some changes to it. But it will add save states to it. You can rewind and fast forward your games. It will map the gamepad for you. It will give you an on-screen keyboard. It has MIDI sound fonts. But there's even more. But that's not all. There's a fairly mature, but still marked as experimental support for Windows 95 and Windows 98, and for masochists, Windows ME. And there is 3DFX support. On top of that, it's not just 3DFX support, it even upscales it. So you can go as far as 4K, so you can see Lara Croft's pointy knees in high res. There is a catch, though. Earlier on, I said it'd been out for 5 years, and that's true, but not quite. There's been a version on RetroArch and Android, but no standalone kind of 1.0 version. But it's due out today, the 18th of October. That's a bit of serendipity. And this, of course, just one way of doing it. Chris, it's not the only way of playing DOS games, is it?
No, absolutely. I mean, in the study nook that most people don't get to see, actually, so I might drop a photo for Duncan. But that's where I've got a real 386DX, similar spec to the one I had back in the day, except this one's got a turbo button, so it can go a bit faster. And that it came with some pre-installed games, yes, but I've added some, which, funnily enough, even if you're dealing with original kit, there's a modern challenge to that, right? So even if you know where to download the software from, it's like, how do I get this onto a disk so that I can install it on that original 386? So I have to go from my modern PC to a USB drive, from the USB drive into my Windows XP machine, which happens to have a floppy disk drive in it. So I can go from there onto a floppy disk and then take that floppy disk into the study NIC, plug it into the 386DX, and hope to God it works. So that's the current method. But the same challenges exist, Dave. I mean, so sound card and joystick drivers and all of that. If you haven't got them, where do you find them these days? And as you said, playing about with AutoExec and config sys and the challenges of, throwing everything into extended memory so that you can just play X-Wing. Yes, X-Wing, I'm looking at you. I can play X-Wing, not a problem. But, you want sound with that? Right. Yeah. I still haven't actually fixed that problem because I gave up last December, actually. I played with that last. But the other way I like, so yes, I do like using original kit, but I'm also not afraid to use just GOG. I love downloading games from GOG. A lot of those are DOS games. And what I like about that is they use DOSBox, but generally you don't have to play about with anything. It's like they're wrapped up with a version of DOSBox, and all the settings you need to have set are pre-configured for that game. So it just works, which is great.
Yeah, I mean, definitely the convenience factor of the save states, rewind, fast forward, like those are things that when those were first introduced. Good morning, my cat's on my lap right now, but Dave's got a friend
Dot.
up there.
This is Dot. Hello, Dot.
Hi, Dot.
For audio listeners, I've got a cat.
Yeah, once I started seeing rewind and fast forward, I was like, "This is the best thing ever." So having that come up to the modern era of big box PC games, that definitely seems cool. To Chris's point, right? GOG is a good way to get a pre-configured DOSBox experience because it's not necessarily the easiest thing to really get to a game friendly state. Exodus, of course, being another way to get at this, but Exodus has some significant limitations. It's really built for Windows. It's built around that Launchbox front end, which when we covered XOIF a couple of months ago, I think I flagged that it felt a little weird that I had to go register for this front end semi-proprietary kind of controlled access thing. Exodus does get you a lot of things that this won't necessarily, like the manuals, maps, box art, magazine coverage, and all that. But it seems like DOSBox Pure will be a really handy way for people to get at a lot of different games, whether they're kind of the first person shooters like Rise of the Triad, or I think you'd mentioned One Must Fall, Jackrabbit or Jill of the Jungle, or all the other J-based platformers that were out there for DOS, pinball titles, stuff like that. So it does seem like this is a long time coming, and yeah, the notion that
Duke Nukem, J-based.
Yep. So yeah, getting something that's not tied to Windows ecosystem that makes it a little more plug and play for DOS gaming. That sounds like a great thing to me.
I did have a question for you, Jason. I know that you were right into your Amigas in the 90s.
Yeah,
famously so.
Yep.
Does that mean that you didn't do DOS?
So there was a DOS machine in the house. So I did have some exposure, So I was playing, I was playing Duke Nukem 3D. I was playing Rise of the Triad. But also playing as much as I could on, the whatever was available for the 060 or the Power PC, branch of the Amiga family, the accelerator boards and stuff like that. So I was trying to make it work. But yeah, I didn't completely miss out on DOS gaming in the 90s, but there were definitely some things that I wasn't as on top of because it wasn't my daily driver. But yeah, I definitely played like X-Wing and stuff like that.
We couldn't call you an example of someone who doesn't know anything about DOS then.
No, sorry.
So this is out today. Well, it's supposed to be out today. I hope it's out today. I obviously can't see into the future. I don't know what the package will look like. I don't know exactly what it'll be there, but it is a fantastic idea, and it's just one way of many of playing DOS games. I've said before that I think there was a golden age of gaming that when DOS appeared with SVGA or just VGA and Sound Blaster sound and the hard disk, and it relied on everyone having that. It was like this golden age of gaming where lots of games like X-Wing and Ultima 7, Ultima Underworld and Doom and all the rest of it appeared, and it was just this phenomenal period of gaming. And if it opens the door to people playing that who were otherwise put off, then this will be fantastic. We are sponsored this week by PCBWay.com. Thank you very much. PCBWay.com. What do they do, Chris?
They do PCBs.
No way.
CNC machining. Yes, it's true. And they have projects on their website that you can just use. And I think Jason's got some information on that.
Yes, I will. I will happily tell you about some of the shared projects that are among the features on PCBWay. There's a light meter for analog cameras. So, your digital camera, that's got lots of real-time light metering in there. But if you are doing it retro style, your film camera may not have a light meter built in, or maybe a little clunky to use. So there's a little project here. It's based on a microcontroller. You mount it to the top of your camera, and you're getting a lot of good ISO and exposure information. So that's one to check out. The PipWatch version 2.0. If you want to live that Fallout life, or you've got some cosplay events coming up, there's a big chunky wrist-mounted PDA in the Pip style from Fallout as a cool little project to take a look at, and a build your own ESP-32 drone. Like, I'm not into drone flying culture, but just knowing what I know about it, like it's crazy how we've gone from model airplanes being only for people who understand the principles of flying to like, oh no, pretty much just anybody can build a stable quadcopter now. So if you want to build your own based on a cheap, easy to get off the shelf microcontroller, you can do that. There's a full build tutorial and all of the design information you need with FreeCAD specifications, and all that is ready on PCBWay.
So thank you very much for PCBWay for sponsoring us this week.
I had to fight Chris a little bit for the honor of taking on this story submitted by my all-time favorite sci-fi trading company, DLC Robot G7VFY. It's the first ever retro computing movie review by the Vintage Apparatus YouTube channel, and it's been gaining some traction. And I fought Chris for it because it's a look at the 1983 film WarGames. And WarGames, if you're on video with us, is one of the 4 nerd-skewing films of the 1980s. I have movie posters on the walls of my office. See, right here over my right shoulder.
So I guess you like it then.
I do like this movie. So if you don't know the film WarGames, I really think you should correct that. Directed by John Badham. It stars Matthew Broderick, Ali Sheedy, John Wood, Dabney Coleman, a top-notch ensemble of other actors. It is about a teenage hacker named David Lightman. He bumbles his way into a U.S. government computer and accidentally convinces it to try to launch a full-on global thermonuclear attack. And this is only possible because, as the story goes, the U.S. government has identified a weak spot in its nuclear deterrent strategy because a substantial number of the people that are trusted to launch nuclear weapons on command fail to do so in launch drills, which are made to seem like a real wartime situation. So they say, take the people out of the loop, just have the computer, after it goes through all the fail-safes, do the launch, and that'll be a great idea. So the premise of this Vintage Apparatus video is to look at the various pieces of computers and other equipment that are shown on screen and discuss whether or not the tech works in the way that it's described in the film. And the Vintage Apparatus host gets off to a really fast start. He stops the film to identify a desktop safe, identifies where it came from, an early card key entry, which was a real thing. And I thought this was going to end up being super, super exhaustive. And in some scenes it is. He does, quickly point out the origin of a number of the video terminals and keyboards and color monitors that are used. There were some oversights that, as a big fan of this movie, surprised me. He talks about that card key system at the beginning of the episode. So I figured he'd be really diligent about all of the other security exploits that we see. But at one point, David Lightman defeats a security system with like forceps and other things that are found in a medical exam room, and he completely skipped over that. So before I get too much deeper into this, so I saw this film in the theaters summer of '83, and it's one I very clearly remember going to with my dad. It's also one of the first movies that I remember the experience of seeing, even though 6-year-old me did not understand all of the layers as well as adult me does. When, if at all, did you guys first get exposed to WarGames?
I definitely didn't see it in the cinema. It was, I think, probably a rental VHS. So yeah, generally back then, now it might have been anything from 6 months to a year after it was in the cinema. I'm pretty sure that's when I first saw it. So, but yeah, it was one of those movies that once I'd seen it, I just watched it over and over. Once it had been on TV and we'd recorded it to our own VHS tapes, it was just, yeah, a repeat view. Just absolutely loved it because I was into computers and stuff anyway. And just the whole storyline, of accidentally starting a nuclear war via basically searching for computer games through his modem, right, is how this kicks off. So yeah, just a fantastic film that you can watch over and over again.
I saw it on the TV. I definitely don't remember any kind of vibe about it, any kind of hype about it when it came out. It came out around the same time as the Return of the Jedi, I think. But I remember Return of the Jedi being a big, big thing, but not WarGames. Not sure if maybe that's because WarGames doesn't quite appeal to kids the same way. But I saw it first on the TV, thought it was a great film. The tech, I mean, no films get tech right. They all kind of get things wrong and so on. But the tech in this isn't terrible. And they put lots of things in it that are true, that are actually real. So it gets a little bit of a pass on me there. But I haven't seen it in a long time. And when I saw this coming up, it made me want to watch it. So I'll be watching this again soon because I haven't seen it in years.
Yeah, vintage apparatus. He points out some goofs and quirks, which I, as a frequent viewer, hadn't thought about before, like the fact that there's these push-button tumbler locks that are made to emit touch tones. I think I never really noticed it happening. I thought that was just like sound effects happening in the background, but I think he's right that they're trying to pass it off that way. When possible, he tries to guess at whether something he can't identify was either just a bespoke item come up with by the film props department, or something that maybe only existed in the specialty market, like military groups, and they got it, surplus or whatever. It talks about the various televideo terminals that were, real things, and they do the bulk of the text processing that we see outside of David Lightman's bedroom, which he uses while looking for a good time to almost start World War III. Talks a lot about the filmed vector graphics renders, which went into those big iconic displays in the NORAD control room, which if you're a player of DEF CON, you'll recognize that style that's lived on to the modern day. Including pointing out that these are pre-generated, transferred to film, which played live on the set, which was pretty common in the 70s and 80s. He picks out mainframe equipment, including the large format tape storage cabinets, along with top-load hard disk platter drives. These are things that are like the size of a washing machine, but store maybe a few hundred megs. He does spend a good amount of deserved time on Lightman's iconic IMSEI 8080 computer setup in his bedroom, although he does misspeak and say that it ran on the Z80 processor, which it did not. It was the Intel 8080.
What was the clue? It was an 8080 there.
Right. That was kind of a tip-off. I mean, I guess you just sort of gloss over and say, well, that's got an 82. Yeah, Chris?
I think, is that the one where, because there's one point in the video where it actually comes up with a correction, but it says a YouTube thing, as in it's not a text within the video. So if you're watching in your browser, he actually does correct himself. I'm pretty sure it's at that point. Yeah.
Okay, I didn't see that. Interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting. So like an annotation or something like that?
Yes, correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting. Yeah, and he notes that the IMSEI was old news in 82. Like you could argue, why didn't Lightman have, say, an Apple II or a TRS-80 or something like that? But the production design apparently specified that everything that teenage Lightman has in his bedroom should be something that he could have scrounged, got more or less for free because it was being given away or dumped. So the IMSEI, the 8-inch floppy drives all make perfect sense in this context. It always felt like a hacker kind of machine. Plus, it's got a bunch of blinking lights, which never hurts. And he does point out that movie magic is driving the display in the bedroom because the IMSEI's front panel lights aren't flashing when you'd expect them to if it was actually doing stuff. Naturally, the actual computer driving it was somewhere else, off camera. Telecommunications is a big part of the WarGames experience because, Lightman stumbles into the nuclear launch computer while searching for an unlisted phone number for a random computer game company that he's just read about. And this is another thing I hadn't noticed. Apparently, he's shown using both an acoustic modem, like this being a place where a lot of us saw acoustic couplers for the first time. That's a thing you put the actual phone handset into to do your modem communications. But he's also got a wall-connected modem that they don't make as big of a deal out, but it's mounted like on top of the monitor. So it's kind of odd that he would be using both modems. It doesn't really make sense. He even delves into the fact that the wall-connected modem must be the one providing the communication with the Joshua computer and things like that, because the speeds are in excess of 300 baud. Which, like if you ever did 300 baud BBSing, that it was real slow. He also mentioned something that I've heard elsewhere, that the process that Lightman uses to try to locate the game company is called war dialing, specifically after this movie. So the process of telling your computer, keep dialing phone numbers to try to find a carrier, that existed, but it wasn't called war dialing until WarGames put it on film. So kind of a,
I didn't know.
Yeah. Life influences art, influences life. Yeah. And and apparently, and I had not thought about this, that doesn't work the way that it's portrayed on an acoustic modem, because an acoustic modem can't toggle the phone hook. Like, he's like, yes, you could build a robotic arm or something, but it's not clear that that's what he did. That was something that had never occurred to me. There's a very iconic payphone hack where he kind of shorts out the phone to get a free call. I don't think the host handled that one spot on. He seems to be conflating the old Captain Crunch Blue Box exploit, which was not a payphone exploit involving certain frequency tones to drive the long distance telephone system. It's a red box that generates the payphone payphone signals that tell the payphone that money has been put in. So that one was a bit of a misfire.
I wonder how intentionally inaccurate they would have to be showing phone hacking on a film, because if they did show you exactly the process and how to hack a payphone on a film that everyone saw, that might cause an issue.
Yeah, no, I agree on that, but I'm saying the host is conflating the tech employed. That what Lightman's seems to be trying to do is, yes, you trick the phone into thinking that he's put money in, but he's conflating that with a blue box, which it's not. And yes, the thinking and natural language processing Joshua AI computer is of course complete fiction. That kind of sort of natural language prompt processing that we do have today, but that was unheard of even just a handful of years ago. So obviously, everything stemming from that is fiction. Lightman does hear Joshua through most of the film, courtesy of a speech synth and external speaker. I found it odd that he said that real-time voice synthesis was really hard to do because, and we even talked recently about like the TI-99 4A computers that had add-on hardware speech synth modules. Like that was boiled down to a chip at this time that you could get to hang on off of a lot of different computers. He says it's possible, but it's movie gimmickry, and sure, we'll say that's fair enough. He also strangely chided Lightman for turning his old computer off without properly shutting it down, which I'm like, no, that's the best part about old computers, that you just turn them off when you're done.
Do you know, Windows 95 has got me trained not to do that. Mm-hmm. But there's absolutely nothing wrong with switching off an Atari ST, even with a hard disk on when you finish doing what you're doing. And it's only when we got to Windows 95 and we had files open and all the rest of it, you wouldn't do that. So definitely 1982, switch it off. No one were even giving that a second thought. Yeah.
No. And so speaking of our hero, I have to mention David Lightman a lot. Like there were a lot of protagonists in the 80s who were clearly set up to inspire youths like me, like us. So is it controversial to say Star Trek The Next Generation's Wesley Crusher is the obvious tipping point which took whiz kids from relatable and fun to grating and unwelcome, but is David Lightman the top of the heap of 80s whiz kids? And if not, Chris and Dave, who's your nominee?
Well, that's a good thing, because for me, Wesley Crusher, I've seen Wesley Crusher seen to be called a Mary Sue. The idea is that he can turn his hand to her and he's a genius. And that's not what Wesley Crusher was about. Wesley Crusher was supposed to be a self-insert, supposed to be the young viewer watching it, imagining, I could be on the Starship Enterprise and I could get a chance to do that. I think Wesley Crusher's character is a little bit unrealistic in terms of it's not credible that he would get all these chances. He wouldn't be Captain Picard's favourite kind of adopted son doing all this stuff. But the one that really annoys me when talking about these things is the last one after Wesley is little Anakin Skywalker. I just didn't like him at all in the films, and that was. I don't mind Wesley that much, but and of course David Lightman is fantastic. David Lightman, Wesley Crusher, and then Anakin Skywalker is the tier list for me.
Okay. Do you have another favorite though?
Oh no! Okay. Lost in Space, the guy in that. Okay. I like that.
Will Robinson.
Oh yeah.
Danger, Will Robinson.
Good one. Well, I'm going to go with it's David Lightman, but I'm going to just say Matthew Broderick, right? Because he's in WarGames as David Lightman, and he's pulling off these hacking stunts. But he's also, of course, Ferris Bueller, and he pulls off a similar stunt in terms of hacking into the school computer and changing the grade in that movie. But in Ferris Bueller's Day Off, he's not only a nerd like us, he's the coolest guy ever, right? I mean, he steals a Ferrari and goes out to the city instead of going to school. Fantastic. Yep. So Matthew Broderick to encompass both.
Yeah. Well, and I think Ferris Bueller, now that you mentioned that kind of flows into the next thing I wanted to throw out there is that Ferris Bueller, yes, he combines mastery of technology and the synth that he rigs up to do XYZ thing, but I do want to talk about some of the other soft technology elements of the film, which didn't get mentioned much in the video, because David Lightman, we can agree, more of an introvert nerd, doesn't have the verve of Ferris Bueller, but my goodness, does he have the most perfect high school girlfriend of all time in Ali Sheedy's Jennifer.
They're cool.
My goodness.
Cool.
And it's not so much technology, but the work in what could have been a short throwaway scene between the two career nerds in the academic lab, Jim and Malvin. Eddie Deason, who plays Malvin, I mean, he kind of made a career out of playing nasally nerds. But the late, great Maury Chaykin, quite the character actor, a lot of different roles. And his Buddha-esque, low-key nerd trying not to lose his temper with the hyperactive Malvin. I mean, that was great stuff. and very realistic. I was also interested to go back and notice the types of technological burnout on display. Like we tend to think that we own oversaturation with tech as a more modern 21st century issue, but filmmakers of the first half of the 80s really spotted it and really captured it on film. The disappeared AI genius Stephen Falken is certainly one type, played by John Wood in this film. Laszlo in Real Genius, and that film comes out just a couple of years later. That's another compelling portrait. The host does call Lightman's various schemes and deceptions in this film, quote, the beginning of social engineering. I mean, of course, that's existed for a long time, fraudsters and scam artists, that goes back centuries, if not millennia. I did find interesting the notion that there's this troublemaker kid, but he's not goofing off for the sake of goofing or just entertaining himself or entertaining others, but as part of a bigger con. He knows that the shortest route to get kicked out of class specifically so that he can get access to the room in the school office that has the mainframe password. So he's not causing trouble, to get off on it, but to attain a specific goal in a locked room that otherwise he wouldn't get into. So that was pretty cool. And even the social aspects of Lightman having two working parents who have their own interests and pursuits. And the film doesn't harp on this, but you get the sense they're not bad parents, but they're not hovering over David's every action or questioning how his grades are suddenly so good, even though he never does any homework. They're not the hands-on management types. So yeah, I mean, WarGames is a really deep film. Anything that we haven't talked about that leaps to your mind, guys?
No, it's so long since I've seen it. I'm really looking forward to watching it again now. And the more I think about it, the more I remember it, the more I remember how it all works together. It's really easy to turn, or to try and turn. I mean, this would have been, I presume, a sci-fi short story. Even if it wasn't written as a short story, it would be the equivalent of one written as a screenplay. And it's really easy to try and turn one of those into a film and not do it very well, because you focus on the plot and nothing else. But this looks as if they managed to get all the things in the background that would tip you off that this isn't very credible got right. So you've talked about the parents, the other nerds in it, all the rest of it. So yeah, it sounds as if they got it exactly right. So yeah, I'll be watching that. You mentioned you have 4 posters on your wall, 4 movies. What are the other 3 then?
You know what? Well, so I'll point at this one here because it's been lurking forever. That's Star Trek 2. I think let's save the other 2 though for when they come up.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And there's a Star Trek 6 poster that some people have pointed out that sometimes hides all the junk on the shelf back here, but that's obviously not wall mounted. That one's still portable.
Yeah.
It's still looking
and
for a
the
home.
Shakespeare as well. What's your favorite Shakespeare sci-fi story?
Richard III in Space, as produced by the BBC in 1980. I have a whole concept. Not even kidding. I will explain this on another episode.
Fantastic. I love it.
We're doing it. We're doing it one of these days. Mark my words.
Well, I really like the breakdown in this. I like the fact that he did point out that some of it is at least semi-realistic, like the war dialer. Okay, no acoustic coupler, not possible, but the way it was presented on screen, he seemed impressed with. And we often lament, we've covered this sort of thing on the show before, how TV and Hollywood gets these details so wrong. We've discussed many things like, an episode of Bones seemingly running something akin to Quake off of an Amiga 1200, which is oddly being booted from an IBM 5.25-inch disc, right? And Stranger Things actually doing an okay job with an albeit green on black customized version of Workbench on an Amiga 1000. That one wasn't too bad. And in fact, only this weekend I went to see Tron Ares, and I forgave it when I saw the protagonist allegedly searching through old floppy disks, again 5.25-inch discs, in an opening scene without once typing dir or viewing a single directory listing. Instead, she sat there happily typing away what looked like basic code while swapping out 5.25-inch floppies like there was no tomorrow. So bizarre, but I forgave it because I'm just there for the entertainment.
Obviously, I think this is a really cool movie that's worth this kind of breakdown, but even more worth your time as a sit down and really pay attention to it kind of view. And I find myself appreciating the cautionary tale in WarGames about total computer powered nuclear war differently every time I see it. And as teen centric thrillers go, it's earnest, it's complete. The next time the phone rings and you weren't expecting a call, remember, it could be a computer struggling for sentience and understanding, which also has command of a vast arsenal of nuclear weapons on its side. So surely you can spare a second and hear him out.
I'd like to welcome 4 new patrons this week. So I'd like to welcome Eric, Kai, Trevor, and Jerome. Thank you for becoming twirlers.
Thank you for. Welcome back, Eric.
If you'd like to become a twirler, where would you go?
You go to patreon.com/thisweekinretro. If you would like to follow This Week in Retro hosts elsewhere on YouTube, we now have a This Week in Retro Elsewhere playlist on our YouTube channel. And in related news, the videos from presentations at Vintage Computer Festival Midwest 2025 are now up. And that includes the Vintage Tech YouTubers discussion that I sat in on, along with recent guests Taylor and Amy, recent guest LGR, Macintosh Librarian, recent feature story perpetrator Polymat, and others. A link to that playlist is in the show notes.
And we should congratulate listener and twirler Ian Lee, who got engaged. So congratulations, Ian. Imagine reading news about twirlers in the newspapers. So yeah, congratulations, Ian. I hope you and Catherine are going to be, well, you're already together. I hope you're going to be even happier together. It's nice to see some good news.
Very cool.
I also I like checking up on my facts. We did the story about box art last week, and I mentioned Bob Wakelin, and I hit up the YouTuber David Retro Games Play Badly because I know he loves his Bob Wakelin covers. And he said, in his words, your facts were correct. They were all Bob Wakelin covers. My personal favorites would be Renegade, Batman, Athena, and Where Time Stood Still. And so I then asked him if he's got the whole collection because I knew he was going for it. And he said to that, everything for the Amiga and the ZX Spectrum. There's a few he did for the C64 only, but I'm not having any of those sullying my collection. Not a C64 fan, it would appear. But yeah, he's kind of given us some photos of his collection, so I'll give them to Duncan to do whatever he wants to do with them. But yeah, really nice collection.
On to news in brief, and top submission this week isn't so much news, it was a little bit of a mystery. It's a very authentic looking Commodore Amiga sign in a random street in Tokyo. So this is a sign off the side of a building. And it's a really good looking sign. Comments in Reddit solve the mystery though. It turns out that this place used to be an Amiga reseller, and the owner is still a big Amiga fan, so he's kept the sign up, as well as if you go inside, there's other things like GVP, dealer stickers on glass doors inside. So thank you, Mako Red Zero, for this little interesting thing. And if you're ever in Tokyo, then I'm not sure you want to go just to a street just to see a Commodore Amiga sign, but if you're ever passing the area, then I'm sure it'd be a nice thing to take a picture of. A little memory for you.
The Killstar links us to Adrian's Digital Basement episode on the Acorn Archimedes. Not something you'd usually see in North America.
And Robert Crowther links us to a BBC article on the Future Nostalgia Project from Cambridge University. This seems really valuable. It's a project helping people access data on old floppy disks. You know, a lot of us have disks or people come across them and they don't know what to do. And, you know, you can find helpful answers like, well, all you do is you buy this board and you buy this drive and then you solder these jumpers together. Oh, no, don't worry. It's easy. And he's like, oh, I can't. Or, you know, but having an institution that is, you know, helping people out so that there's a place to bring floppies, send floppies, this seems really, really valuable.
Yeah. It's something one of our friends, Robert Smith McCure, did for what I think it was. What did he's take it to some expo anyway? His machine that automatically does that for you. You put a USB stick in, you put your disc in, and you get an image on it. So yeah, it's a great thing because there must be people who have made music or pictures or something. Fantastic, access to those. Squelch 411 links us to a fantastic C64 fan-made Bubble Bobble, what's called a remaster, and I haven't had a chance to look into this. It's called a remaster, and that word remaster made me wonder, is it a remaster here? Have they remastered it, or is it just a remake? But in any case, it's a Bubble Bobble, and it looks absolutely fantastic, and it sounds fantastic as well. It's nice and smooth. Bubble Bobble, such a good game, and the C64, I don't know if it had one before, but it now has a fantastic version of Bubble Bobble to play.
Squelch 411 also links us to a history of Glider for the Apple Mac. So that's a game, apparently, where you're a paper plane.
Iconic early Mac game. And speaking of early games, Jeff Minter's lost ZX81 game Fast Life has been recovered It's Me Thyroid links us to games that weren't Fast Life, as the name implies, more of a simulation than a game based on Conway's Game of Life, quote-unquote, zero-player game. And if you've got other news items to share with us, please visit our subreddit, reddit.com/r/thisweekinretro.
My memories of school are not great, and I certainly wouldn't want to go back there or even step on a school bus that might take me there. But I'd step on the one built by father and son team Jason and Luke Stoner. This has been covered by the BBC, no less, as well as Tom's Hardware, and shared with us by C Worldliness 7525 and Pajako 6502, respectively. After visiting the Centre for Computing History, son Luke Stoner came up with the idea of building his own museum, but in a travelling format, so that it could visit people unable to travel to a brick and mortar one. So he and his dad, Jason, set up a charity called Retro Reset and built a museum into the back of a school bus. So they visit local schools and colleges, they do workshops, and it's all about the kit inside the bus, which includes things like BBC Micros, which the BBC themselves captioned in the news article as being from 1991. You'd think they'd know better, given it's part of their own history, but moving on. Commodore 64 is in there, as well as a Sinclair/Timex machine. Consoles as well are in there, like the Atari 2600, Sega Mega Drive, PlayStation 1, N64, Sega Dreamcast. There's no definitive list, but apparently there's about 10 machines on display. Possibly they go in rotation, and they're all available for hands-on use. There's even a PC that was used in Hollywood film editing, and that's there for people to actually look at, pull it apart, and learn about all the bits inside. Having personally visited Neil's The Cave, or the RMC Retro Collective Cave, or whatever it is now, I've been there twice now, and I totally see the value of hands-on exhibition spaces. And this one is, of course, in no way set out to compete with the larger places like that. But we've also discussed on this show how making the time to get out or traveling the distance required, cannot, quite honestly be a challenge for some. And I've also been to, I think this is linked here, I've been to parties right here in Perth where the host has done things like rented out a handful of classic arcade games, actual full-on cabs, original cabs. They've been delivered by the owner, left for the duration of the party, and taken away after. And so I think that's another really cool way to get exposure for these machines. I'm not so sure this school bus is going to come to your party. I don't think that's their thing. But what about attending, like a retro meet? Or maybe being part of a village festival or something like that to get, more exposure to this part of computing history. On their website, which is at retroreset.org, it actually lists schools, colleges, youth clubs, and it just says other organizations as services that they can go out to. So, guys, my question to you, okay, if you were to build a traveling museum, first and foremost, what kind of vehicle would you build it into? And what would you put inside it? Jason?
Does it have to travel? Because
yes, if it has to travel.
All right. So fine. If price and practicality is no object and it has to travel, then let's put it in a submarine. Obviously, with a lot of sims running in it, but also you can have like Battle Zone and stuff like that. There's things that have military claustrophobic type feel. That's my ideal retro museum, and take it through the various waterways of the world.
That would be pretty cool, actually.
That would be pretty cool.
It could be a submarine or a ship, like a decommissioned battleship or something.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that would be cool. Yeah, what would you put in it? Oh, you said, yeah. Battle Zone and all of that. Yep, Dave.
I'm embarrassed with my idea after that fantastic one, Jason. I was going to say, I like the idea of a bus because you need lots of light. If you did it in something like a truck, it would be dark and dingy inside and a bit, not ideal, unless you were going for that, which Jason was with his submarine idea. So I think the bus is ideal. As for what's in it, I don't think I'd do anything differently than what they've done. I don't think you'd want to have the modern stuff in there. I think you'd want to have stuff where you have to hands-on and you have to be able to type into a command prompt and so on. So things like a C64 or a BBC Apple II, that type of thing, ideal. You need it to be a bus so you've got all that light coming in. Otherwise, you're kind of putting people off coming into this kind of almost like a changing room kind of feel if it's all sealed up with no lights. But yeah, Jason's idea is much better.
I'm gonna go against your. It needs to have lots of light, because I would go with a big semi trailer and truck. You think, the truck out of Knight Rider or Smokey and the Bandit, maybe. So you've got the retro link there as well with how you stylize the truck as well. And I would go arcade, because while I agree, Dave, certain things like a bunch of school kids learning about a BBC Micro, you want plenty of light in the room. If you want to just play games, then you don't want any screen glare. So you don't want any windows shining into the back of the screens. So I would just fill it up with arcade machines, anything from the period. I guess driving games to go along with the theme of transport and travel and that kind of thing. I think that's probably what I'd do. So anyway, I think this is a great concept. So Retro Reset and its bus are based in East Sussex. But that aside, let's hope Jason and Luke are up for a long drive to Scotland so Dave can finally visit something retro. Time now for our community question of the week, which was, what's the best free pack-in you've picked up with a system, old or new? Are we out of contest mode, Dave?
I'm going to hit the button. And Reddit, can you please let me have the old way of doing it rather than the new way? We're now out of contest mode.
Woo-hoo.
So the top answer. Shall I go with the top answer? So the top answer is Jeff Mendoza, and he says Mega Drive with Sonic 1. Even all these years later, with multi-carts being a thing, I always hang on to a proper Sonic cartridge. And yeah, that must be one of the... That must, if we were ever going to talk about the best launch kind of pack-in titles, that's got to be an absolute stormer.
Yep, and the two answers that follow also follow in that vein. Christoph, why do you? And Gunnar Warhorse both saying the praises of Wii Sports, with Gunnar saying, don't know if you class that as retro, we can argue about that, but what other game pack has drawn in so many non-gamers into playing games? For sure.
Oh, that's a good point, actually. That is a fair point. Pajako6502 says Tetris on the original Game Boy. Holy heck, did that game get a lot of hours of game time. That game sold the Game Boy and basically gave the Tetris company a license to print money.
Yeah, a lot of great answers came up on this one. Weeping Scorpion 1982. I'll just mention, I really hope we can hear more about your Titanium 4002 double knot. He knows what I mean.
He's talking about, he says, you don't remember buying a computer console pack-in games. He talked about games that came with graphics card. And that's something I'd forgotten about, buying a graphics card that comes with a game of the time. Yeah, he talks about Alien vs. Predator and other things as well.
That's true. That's where I came across Incoming, which is a fantastic game, and it came with my Banshee. Yeah, that was a thing.
It's Me Thyroid says, no way this counts, but I like when you buy a car second-hand and you get the previous owner's sunglasses and CD wallet.
Hey, that's absolutely fitting the theme.
That's a pack-in.
Brilliant.
What is a computer what is a computer? What is a car if not a complicated computer system these days?
Yeah,
that's true.
On to next week's question of the week. What iconic whiz kid of 80s media would you like to see a new adventure from? Where would you go to answer that question, Chris?
You'd go to reddit.com/r/This Week in Retro.
Fantastic. And we'll see you next week for more of this.
We insist.
Sounds good.
Jason's waving. Chris is waving. I'm waving.
Bye.
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 This Week in Retro was written and presented by Chris from 005 AGIMA, Jason from the Retro Adventurers, and Dave. It was edited by me, Duncan Styles. The podcast version of the show is available through your favourite podcast app, including Apple Podcasts and Spotify. And the video version is available on the This Week in Retro YouTube channel.
Join our community subreddit at r/thisweekinretro to suggest and vote on the stories we cover on the show. Please give us a like and subscribe to help us reach new viewers.
If you enjoy our show and would like to support it, then please check out the link to our Patreon page in the show notes or description. Thank you for listening, and we'll see you next time for more up-to-date news for out-of-date tech.
I did like Dave. I like that I said, who are your favorites? Like Anakin Skywalker was shit. Like, yes, but who do you like?
I thought you meant, who's your favorite example of that kind of thing? I thought you were going, and that's when I read your notes. That's what I thought you were going for. Who's your example of kids you hate and things?
No, I meant the goodies, but that was fine.
Yeah, and then I was stuck for one.
I love that happens quite frequently where the question gets ignored and we just go on to talking about whatever, which is fine. It's awesome. Love it. What makes it fun?
I've never heard Jason say shit before.
Yeah.
Quite enjoyed that.
That's on camera.
It's a great word.
Oh yeah, we're still recording. We could stop recording and upload.
We could.
Yeah.
Anyway, Duncan, have a lovely day. Bye-bye.
Yes, a lovely day of less than 1 hour of editing.
Yes.